Sup Shredders, my name is Logan, aka Spiderhands, and welcome to an SP Reviews, where today we're going to be checking out some tracks by an act named Herman Martinez off of their upcoming album Immortal Jellyfish. And if we switch over to here, we got the art for it on MusicBee. This is releasing next month, and we'll be checking out 6 tracks today. I've already reviewed, as I understand it, a few tracks off of this upcoming album before, and I'm excited to hear more, so we're going to listen through each of these 6 tracks from start to finish, and we're going to hear what we think. Starting with Cassettes. Let's go. Nice, just a double kick with these interesting cascading guitar melodies. I'm loving the sparkles as well. They're a nice contrast to the drive we had initially. Great modulation there. It's just such a charming combination of bass, guitar, drums, piano, and vocals. For a good singer, telling a story, we'll get all the other instrumental elements involved. You know, it's a long-form track as well, but the variety within the harmonies and progressions and everything like that, it makes it well worth the journey, should I say. Great overdubbing there. I like the imagery that we're describing within the track of remembering the sounds, the scenery, and everything like that. It makes me kind of feel like this experience is something he's trying to capture on a tape recorder and you know, on a cassette. Something he's trying to record just for posterity, you know? That expansion there. Sick little tap solo there. The beauty of the piano parts, the simplicity of those right-hand notes in the upper register contrasts so nicely with the complexity and, all the different triads we have playing with those guitar parts. A few chromatics in there as well. Oh, and strings as well? Gorgeous. Great return to this motif, very well done. Is that like tape distortion or something like that? I mean, this is genuinely horrifying to listen to be fair. I mean, like, it was incredibly unique. I think that there's a few things I really appreciated about that track Cassettes, which I think is about someone desperately trying to find that recording or trying to reach for things they can use to record their experiences so that they don't lose them. Maybe we dreamed about it and it was like finding our way to keep that in mind. It was like a really beautiful dream or something like that. But it could also be based on reality and the way that we process information and everything like that. Herman's vocals sound fantastic. Great sort of sense of clarity and presence to them in the mix. I also liked when we modulated things at the end and it got all kind of twisty and kind of messed up and warped, like it sounded like a tape machine or something having an error. I think that, again, the mixture of the really intricate guitar riffs with the bass line that was relatively minimalist and somber in comparison, the great phrasing with the drum fills and grooves and the interesting use of the hi-hat on the right side of the stereo field, coupled with the strings at the end and the keys, little plink plonks. So just wonderful. I think it's a really great start to things. I know this is the second track off of the album, but still, like great second track. And now for track 2 for today, Introvertebrae, track number 2.
Here's a song about being young. I should have done all the things, but I only did some. Here's a song about being old. Nobody was buying. Some souls never get sold.
Damn, nobody was buying, some souls never get sold. Damn, that's a hell of a line.
Wanna write about, wanna sing about all of my fears. Don't know if they'll come true or disappear.
I mean, like, the chord progressions as well are unpredictable and not necessarily unconventional, but you can tell there's a lot of thought put into having lots of twists and turns almost to mirror the journey that the performer is going through.
About being heard. I tried to tell the story before I knew the words. Here's a song about being more, but I'd give up all my dreams just to listen to yours. Wanna write about, wanna sing about all of my fears.
to also give a quick shout out to the dynamic range and how much life this album has in it so far. I'll try not to pause too much more. I just really kind of want to get these words out whilst things are so kind of full and invigorating. It's great to know we can write a longer track and a shorter track and still be equally interesting.
Here's a song about being enough.
Great use of delay repeaters. Really uncomfortable flutters, but the keys are gorgeous. Yeah, no, I'm incredibly impressed with it. I think that Introvertebrae was about someone who is looking back on his life and kind of regretting the fact that he didn't do enough when he was young, and he's talking about getting old and the fact that we're all just inside our own shells, and sometimes people don't want those souls, and we just got to kind of cope with that. It's commiserating, basically. I think the shorter form factor did really suit this one well. We didn't necessarily need to have a whole lot of complexity with lots of different parts to tell the story that we did. I think that it was fantastic to have that piano outro at the end simply because it allowed for a lot of space to sort of consider what had been told to you by Herman. The way that we spread the guitar solo, which was wonderfully phrased, to then go into that synthy key part on the side was really elegant as well. I think that this would do well as a single, genuinely, and I really hope that we do get some airplay for this album because it's very good so far. We got track 3 for today, Plot Armor. Yeah, we can clearly play the keys, man. They sound wonderful. A little bit tense, but it's okay.
I saw you there.
The bass response is just on point. A nice adjustment with the hi-hat grooves. The shuffle there. Not necessarily a shuffle, but a 16th note kind of movement regardless.
I saw you there, weeping on your memories. You are now stronger than ever, waiting for the world to sail on, borrow words from elder, borrowed songs of poetry we deserve.
It's very humbling that that way he kind of goes down like that, legatos it. It seems very sincere. and the way that we go down to that chord and the keys to kind of meet with that. I also want to give a shout out to that little solo section that we had before that. It was nice to have the movement with the keys, with the different sort of hi-hat parts, but then for the guitar to do what it's not done necessarily throughout this album so far, where it slows down and plays whole notes. We have rhythmic contrast between various elements of the mix. And it's nice to have that movement there. It's already fascinating because of the subject matter and the stories that's being told, and because of the way the chords and everything are strung together. But it's those little changes as well, which really sort of like make it just a little bit, even a little bit more zazzier than it already is.
It's alright.
Kind of sounds a bit Steve Vai-ish, to be honest, but the distorted reverbs and stuff. Did you hear that tremolo bar work? It sounded like someone crying. That was magnificent. What an incredible performance. Great switch to the high range. Sorry, what was that, like single notes? Was that delay on those? Or was it like tap ping pong delay or something like that? Or was that little because if that's the case, you got a tremendous technique there, my dude. Kudos on that. Either way, it sounded dope. It was a nice little break. That was dope, man. That sound design. The little subs on the left. Dude, that was tremendous. This album has been stellar so far. I've had a really fantastic time with it. This track, I'm a little bit less sure about than the others, although I might have missed nuance with those as well, but I didn't get all the words clearly. I think it was just because I was trying to pay attention to everything, and there was a lot going on. But that's my issue to deal with as a reviewer. It's I think this track is about someone who I'm not quite sure how it relates to the title plot armor, but someone who is looking at someone else like from far away, and they've got this world that they go on this journey and this place that they've discovered, and maybe it's like an out of body experience or something like that. But I think that Herman is going, hey, actually, I want to go to the world that you've wandered. I want to be a part of that too. Can I go there? And like, basically then we're talking about getting carried there, or like carrying someone there or something like that, getting the opportunity to be able to be a part of that. You know, I think that's a really beautiful thing to talk about, because especially with imagination, it can be something that is unfortunately a little bit lacking in a lot of music nowadays. But this seems like it's a very personal project for Herman, and I like the fact that I get the chance to review it, and I like the fact that it exists. It's wonderful musicianship. As a closing comment, because I don't want to be on these sort of track conclusions too long. I think that solo section with the wah and the tremolo bars and stuff was absolutely stellar. And I think as well, the little piano breaks, as I mentioned there, was incredible as well. There's lots of little, but it's also the sound design at the end with like the clicking sound. I'm not quite sure what that sound was, the crick kind of sound. And then like maybe like someone like rolling something. It's like a telephone or something like that, like one of those rotary telephone with the little things you twist that my nana used to have. But then it's just the sound design. This is a professional commercial grade album, and I'm so glad I had the opportunity to check it out. And I think you should do too. But anyways, we got track number 4 today, which is Midnighter. Let's go. I'm sure we had keys before, but I'm liking the focus on them with this one. And use of organ as well, damn dude. Oscillation is so satisfying. Are we switching time signatures? You're doing some cheeky stuff there, Mr. Herman Martinez. What are you doing with those time signatures? I'm trying to follow along to as I listen to it. I'll go back a little bit so that we can enjoy the next solo section, but there's some crazy stuff going on there rhythmically. And that's not even including all the other awesome stuff going on within the arrangement itself. Holy shit, that was probably one of the most compelling instrumental tracks I've heard in an extremely long time. The use of the keys at the start with the organ that just featured for a moment, just enough to be a palate cleanser, right? And you had this really intense, dynamic motif that's been placed there in part due to the oscillation of the organ, as well as the consistency of the keys, and just the excitement in general was palpable. But then, of course, you had the drums and the bass and the guitars come in, and everything just segged together and amalgamated so neatly. And in 2 minutes, it's such an incredible use of time. It had several distinct sections that you could easily follow along with. There were nice bits of development compositionally with instrumental layers added. The solo section, especially when things got really anthemic near the end, with those different time signature changes as well before that, which were absolutely just incredible. I like the fact that we managed to get those. Like there was a 6 and then like a 7 or something like that. Was there a 6-8 and then a 7-8 and then you looped that? Am I wrong? Let me know if I'm incorrect or if I missed. It could just be 13-8 or something like that. I'm not sure. But I think the phrasing was 6-7 because it sounded like you had 2 different bars. But like, just wow, man. Wow. And we went in a completely different direction from the kind of the wah tremolo emphasis when the previous song. Because I think with this one we understood it would be less appropriateness to kind of, we needed a more direct lead line to keep things sort of like the way we want them. And like, I can just imagine going through like the sky at midnight, flying towards your next destination. We can do 2-minute tracks, we can do 4-minute tracks, we can do 6-minute tracks. I don't think there's anything we can't do at this point, which is why I'm kind of excited for Changing Colors While Dreaming, which as I understand it is like 10 minutes or something like that. But at this point I have faith in Herman because of everything that's put forward. And I like the fact that I think that might be the last track off of the album, because it's like if you've gotten to that point, you know, you listen to the 18 tracks on this album, because there's a lot of good material on here. I've reviewed stuff from this album before, I think. It's just, oh man. It's awesome. So we're going to listen to MacGuffin first, and I'm sure that'll be great too. So MacGuffin.
We are now what you think we are. Born and forgotten.
That was charming.
Histories and undiscovered stars and eerie songs that
I love that we didn't just go to resolve on that part. When we talk about songs that don't exist, are we discussing what we were kind of hinting at earlier on, where like we kind of hear sounds as scenery? Are we questioning whether or not the things we knew or the things we wanted to record in the first place, or maybe the place we wanted to go, is really worth it? Oh, we're okay. Excellent. What is happening? It's exciting because no one knows. Is it a fade out? That sounds like several different ringtones at once. Oh, so like I just had to remember what a MacGuffin was. It's a thing in like a movie or something like that that is used to forward the plot despite having any real kind of intrinsic importance. Okay, that's cool. So maybe we are sort of looking at the thing that we're being told about, all these different sensory things that we are noticing, and we're realizing that even if we imagine it to not necessarily be so important, and we've realized that it's not that important or like something that we really need, we still want to move forward with it anyways because it's something we'd still probably enjoy regardless. That we need to do regardless. Okay. I think that might be it. I could be wrong. Let me know if I've got that mixed up. But I think the triplet flow with the drums here, the wonderful ambience with the reverb on the keys and such, the incredible power of some of those string sections and the fluctuations with these strings, and that like in that midpoint there was this massive kind of the swell, and it was just gorgeous because after that we came down again, but it didn't lose any of its like power. It was still meaningful, but we're just so good at this point with sound design that we can get away with stuff like that. And I think that at the end we had the situation with you know, that where it was just like, oh, what is this? I don't know, but this sounds kind of dope. It makes you wonder why it's included there. It doesn't sound stylistically separate from the piece you've been hearing, and there's been little bits of this throughout the album up until this point, anyways. 'Cause I think this is track number 16, if I'm not incorrect. But yeah, dude, that's so cool. And I suppose finally we had it was a relatively slow song where we were sort of contemplative about the position we're in. But I think that just the use of those first few chords that we had going to a new section and then kind of divorcing ourselves from the expectation a lot of people have to go to that root note is just so Herman. And I've reviewed a lot of his material at this point, and I love it. I love that we do not try to play it safe in regards to our compositions. I like that we express our full creativity and that we're capitalizing on it. We got Changing Colors While Dreaming, the final track for today. Let's do it. Shredders, let's do it. Filtering the drums, a slow build. I mean, have these string sections been so as prominent in Herman's work as they are now? Because I think they're a wonderful addition.
There is no more in between. Where you are and where you've been.
Fantastic vocal fries. I love the tone of the vocals.
Other worlds are whispering, and they know you're listening. There is music in your name, but the song's never the same. And every word has been erased. I rewrite them every day. More sounds and words, pretending to be a verse. Every song you've ever heard, voices and no
It's also just the fact that we have this wonderful situation with the drums. There's a nice amount of dynamic range to the percussion as well. We can slam the kit and do some really sort of prominent fills and create cymbal hits and stuff like that and kicks, but often we're sort of ghost noting with little snares and stuff like that, so the focus is more on the other elements, and I enjoy that a lot. The pocketing is great.
I will turn through every page, leaving blood on every stage. One more song no one will hear.
Like this section here with the bum 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 on the right side there in its own position, the cute little string plucks, the piano cascading underneath, you know, the other sort of almost foley sounds on the left. Yeah, it's just kind of modulated strings or synths in it. How are we going to spend the rest of this 6 minutes though? We've had a lot so far, haven't we? I feel as if I've earned this at this point, you know? Just to allow there to be the chemistry between the instrumentalists. Tempo change. Kind of reminds me of Opeth a little bit. So like this is what you need to do in a long form track. Instantiate a different concept. Make it fit texturally. Harmonizing in thirds or fourths. Or maybe fifths. It's like a breath of fresh air when the keys came in. The distortion goes away. mean, it's just so heavy when the distorted guitars come in this part. So it goes between 4/4 and 7/8, or 7/4. Stunning. I mean, I think that that's fantastic use of 10 minutes. It's one of the longest tracks I've reviewed, to be fair, but it's well worth it. For several reasons. One, just quickly before we go into the conclusion, what I liked about this track is how much of an instrumental focus there was in it. It was basically, the keys, the guitar, the bass drums for a lot of it. We had various ways in which they were interpreted and put forward. We had the prettier kind of keys and the intro backing there that we had, with the drums coming in with a bit of filtering and kind of being a bit more expressive moving forward. With the guitars, any guitars and drums kind of, yeah, so there was a bit of distortion, but it was more about keeping sort of a more sort of somber, respectful timbre up until that point where we just slammed it at the halfway point. We just went doosh, and we just had this massive amount of passion and fury to the tone, and it just sounded so heavy with a combination of double tracked, maybe even quad tracked guitars, the bass, etc. It was incredible. I think that you needed to have that extra part there with the distortion and the manic kind of like 4/4 to 7/8 there to really kind of make it worth this being the length it is. Because even though Herman Martinez is a great songwriter and I think a great performer, at the same time, it's just, you can only go so far with even 2 or 3 different progressions or motifs. It's just, you want to have a twist in the tail, a bit of a spike, and we a bit of a sting, and we had that in the way that it was probably one of the heaviest kind of interlude sections I've heard from Herman, and I'm glad I got the opportunity to experience it. So I think it was great that Herman kind of stepped away from that. Maybe that was meant to be the cycle that we're going through, going between like the big ending and then the beginning. Maybe the heaviness there was meant to represent the chaos that can come from a reinvigoration or a rejuvenation, or you know what I mean, like the cycle looping itself again, because I can't imagine that would be smooth. And then we basically had more of that dissonance or quicker sections between the two as we went along until the end where things petered out. We were maybe anticipating things, we were forgetting that we were also talking about forgetting the songs that we knew and everything like that. So maybe part of that cycle is forgetting things to be born anew as a completely different new being. And it's like reincarnation or something. I'm not sure. It's fantastic music though. And welcome to the conclusion of my review of this album from an act named Herman Martinez, titled Immortal Jellyfish. Now, my review of these 6 tracks we listened to today, which were as follows. We had Cassettes, Introvertebrae, that's a difficult one. Plot Armor, Midnighter, MacGuffin, and Changing Colors While Dreaming. Now, there are a lot of things I liked about these tracks on this album, and I'm very glad that we're releasing it soon because I would quite like to listen to it in my own time in its entirety. It's a stellar record. There were elements of lots of different influences I could hear, from stuff like Opeth, like early 90s grunge and stuff like that. A lot of the kind of progressive rock and even some progressive metal elements that I've heard recently, but also some really fantastic fusion elements, like from the different piano key patterns we had there, a bit of the organs. There were lots of different instruments, but one thing that sort of stayed consistent throughout as well as through a lot of the different albums I've listened to from Herman, is the mysticism of the general experience. I've spoken about the individual tracks with what I think they're about, so I won't go on too long about it here because his conclusions, especially for these album reviews, are quite long and I don't want to sort of like overdo them. But I think that my view of this album as a whole is more talking about his personal experiences, the way he interacts with music and the world around him, and his like philosophy on it, the way he interprets sounds as like scenery, maybe imagining a better alternative, a better different reality that he can get to and find it there. Maybe he found that through music. Maybe he wants to be taken on a journey somewhere or to go to somewhere new to wander. And then I think at the end we're basically getting to the point where maybe we're sort of questioning the importance of that. And like with Introvertebrae as well, like there was like concerns about like not having done enough whilst we were young and not being wanted whilst we were old. So maybe we thought if we went somewhere else we'd be desirable, or we wanted someone to want us, and at the end we just realized that, well, okay, we're just going to do this cycle anyways, so we committed to it anyways. I'm not quite sure if that's correct. It could be completely off base. There could be a lot of nuance and missing, but that's what I think the album's about. I think that's a hell of a lot more original than a lot of the material I review, so I think that's absolutely 4 stars for me, 5 stars. It's just, yeah, the vocals as well were great. I think that Herman's vocals sound dope and appropriate for the type of music we're doing here. There is a nice little bit of vocal fry in it. We're in that sort of mid to high register, and it harmonizes nicely. It has great presence on top of the rest of the elements in the mix. I think that the performance in general was really, really good. I got through most of the words through nice and clearly, which is great. I think as well that we had great sort of control of our head and chest voice. There were vocal harmonies as well. We had multiple guitar sort of sung tracks, and I think on the sides of the stereo field, if not the center, and that sounded groovy as well. We emoted really effectively in this. I think we showed a sincere amount of authenticity like we usually do. We weren't trying to be someone else. I think this is just his own story, and he told it in a way where he held nothing back. And the vocals glistened and shone in the mix, and I'm very, very impressed. He's a great singer. We had a few little legato sessions and stuff like that, a bit of vibrato, and it was great. So the vocals and the storytelling were wonderful. I think as well that what we did in terms of these tracks themselves with the structures was phenomenal, because we had a wide range of different lengths here. We had some 2-minute instrumentals such as Midnighter. We had longer tracks such as, Cassettes, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, was 6 minutes or something like that. I could be wrong. But we then also had songs like Changing Colors While Dreaming, which were 10. And regardless of whether they were 2 or 10 minutes, they were thoroughly intriguing the entire time. It wasn't just that you had to really listen to get what the track was about. You weren't spoon-fed it by any means. And it wasn't just that it was sung well. It's also the fact that the instruments were performed well. In regards to I'm not sure I want to describe it. I mean, usually when I talk about the theme, I talk about the various sort of chord progressions of bass lines and choices and stuff like that and how they made me feel. So I suppose if I talk about a few of the key instruments here, with the understanding that the structures of these were either through composed or they had like verse sort of chorus structures, but then there were extensive instrumental sections, interludes, completely different sections such as in Changing Colors While Dreaming. A few of the instruments I really liked in this mix were, first of all, the keys. I think the piano playing was an absolute delight, and a lot of the time it was more sort of like simple in the sense that, like, not that it's bad because it's simple, but that we highlighted some upper accents on the register. But other times there were some really intense technical performances there that really showed the skill level and our proficiency in a way that was very positive. And I think that they not only sounded fantastic, but elevated the sense of sophistication from it, because just I feel as if that was just the absolute no-brainer to add to this album when you've already got really, that we've got sort of our fundamentals of music theory and composition down with the way that we not only follow through with like the key shapes and the scales and everything like that and modes, we do modulations of various ideas, but we also know when to do the right chromatics, so we know when to do the right parallel major or minor chords, or we know not to resolve on the next section of a song to the root, because it can be kind of like it can build tension if you don't do that. There are things like this that show that Herman is by no means a beginner. They're advanced. They're absolutely nailing it, and that's not only in part because I think of the experience they've had recording multiple albums now, but I think it's also that they just have found their niche and they're very comfortable with it. So when I say that the guitars and bass and drums already sounded great on their own and they were well enough to listen to, it's just that we had the piano as well here, which I'm sure there was piano on the previous albums, but this was more prominent this time, and it's just stunning. There was a glow to it, it had a beauty, there was bits of delay and reverb into them, it was fluffy and misty and suited the vibe of what we were discussing there, the kind of introspection that we were doing. And, you know, there was dynamic range and variety to the different notes and chords we played there. There was even some organ parts and sort of piano solo bits with really interesting effects, but also just really well performed. So the keys are a highlight of mine. I also think that the way that the guitars were played were absolutely sensational. It was incredible to have the different arpeggios, the power chorded bits, the lead lines that we had there. But it wasn't just the lead lines, it was also the solo sections with the effects chains where we had like lots of tremolo and wah pedal and stuff like that, but also when you want to strip it back, such as in Midnighter, and just have a full-on lead solo section like anthemic one. We are very well aware of what songs need now, if not before, in regards to when we solo, and it's such a delight to listen to because of that. There is no alienation between the various tracks. They still sound like they're on the same album, but it's more like, how do I describe it? It's like we know exactly which buttons to press in order to get the desired result. I think part of that is because of how well the drums, for example, I'm going to talk about the drums in a moment, how well they sync up with it and how they sort of coalesced with the keys and the bass and the strings and all that. But it's just the attention to detail, the understanding of what's required to make a proficient substitution for a vocal part, because that's what the guitar leads usually fill in for. It's just wonderful. I think we've definitely reached the apex, although that would be sad because I really hope that I get to hear even more stuff from him in the future, and it'll be cool to see what he does in the future. Finally, the drums. I mean, I don't get me wrong, I really appreciated the bass lines. I think the strings are wonderful, a little bit of Foley and stuff and sound effects and other synth parts or any organ parts we have are great. But the drums for me for the final thing, because it was just such a massive variety of different drum grooves, riffs, chops and beats in there. You couldn't just help but fall in love with it. There was an incredible and deep understanding of what was required to not only niche well with the other elements of the arrangement, like the rhythms that we're playing on the drums were appropriate to what we were doing on the guitars, bass, etc. But also there was just, not only could we play those different times and actually changes like an absolute boss, but we could also do some incredible fills that transitioned really seamlessly in there. And we also knew when to step back from the drums and allow things to float. The drums were not all the time, but when they were in, they did their job, they pocketed when applicable, but they also expanded upon it and grew the track with their presence. And I think that's really something to behold. Ultimately, I think the instrument performances were tight. I don't think there was a note out of place. And if we just briefly discuss the themes, I think the whole entire album sounded like someone trying to figure out their deepest thoughts and feelings on the life around them, their own relationship with music. And just in general, that's what the music told me. There was incredible shifts in emotion, such as in tracks like Changing Colors While Dreaming. There were some songs where, like MacGuffin, where we were almost a little bit kind of like, we were being very sort of like attentive to our own needs, whilst also trying to be a little bit more quieter with the person we're telling the story to, as if we were sort of wondering whether we were doing the right thing. We were kind of self-aware in that one, if not before. And songs like Cassettes and Introvertebrae as well, it's just the themes in them with the huge complexity to the way things were written, composed, the unpredictability, the elements, the amount of leeway to do whatever we wanted to and needed to, it was just stunning. And I think that, I think that the motifs reflected the stories that were telling pretty well. And I don't think it was, I think it's pretty stellar, to be honest. And finally, we have the studio recording, mixing, mastering, which in this one was it was awesome. I'm really stoked with the fact that the vocals had a nice presence in the mix. There was a little bit of fixed chain processing with some parts with like reverb and stuff like that, but it was an organic, just a really well sung time from Herman. I think that in addition to Herman's parts, it was also just the guitars, bass, drums, pianos, keys, etc. They niched really nicely. They weren't just in the center of stereo field, there were guitar tracks out on the far sides. Sometimes cymbals had different parts going up against like a guitar part or whatever. The strings came in at various places. It was never an obvious thing where things should go. It sounds like a very kind of like we've gone into every single aspect and tried to optimize it as best we can kind of thing without sterilizing it. There was nice leveling with it, so there was no resonant frequencies in the frequency spectrum. There was automation of things going backwards and forwards, and there was nice filtering of various elements there. There were little bits of Foley which sounded warped and more, like in Cassettes where things became more warped with the vocal line as things went on. There was nice attention to detail with that as well. It had dynamic range. Things weren't the same loudness all the time. It had life to it, and it could breathe. And then finally, it was still nice and loud though, so the bus compression and limiting were handled. I mean, effectively, this is a really promising album from Herman Martinez, and I really wish them the best of luck with it, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go check him out at various social medias. I'm sure this will be on all digital streaming platforms next month, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next review. Spiderhands Out.